You want me to believe that your species voluntarily consumes ethanol for recreational purposes? Dr. Zixtal's secondary breathing membrane fluttered in what passed for laughter among the Arcsidians. And you survive this? Listen, Doc, I said, trying not to roll my eyes at yet another alien medical professional getting worked up over human biology. I'm just here for my Galactic Union medical certification. Can we skip the usual humans are Deathworlders speech and get to the actual exam? The towering arthropoid clicked its mandibles in what I'd learned was their equivalent of a dismissive snort. Very well, but I must note for the record that your species' casual relationship with toxins is... It paused, antennae twitching as it searched for the right word. Concerning. I'd been through this song and dance before. Every time humanity made contact with a new spacefaring species, we got the same reaction. Horror at our caffeine addiction. Disbelief at our ability to eat capsaicin for pleasure. Shock at our radiation resistance. At this point, it was getting old. The exam room of the Galactic Union Medical Center was like most alien medical facilities I'd seen. Antiseptically clean, filled with equipment I barely recognized, and designed for beings with very different anatomies than mine. I perched awkwardly on an examination platform clearly meant for something with more legs. Dr. Zixtal began running their diagnostic scanner over me, the holographic readouts flickering in the air between us. Remarkable, they muttered. Your body is actively fighting off 3 different viral infections, yet you show no symptoms. Yeah, that's called an immune system. We've got a pretty good one. The doctor's compound eyes widened. You mean to tell me your body maintains a constant state of internal warfare against pathogens? And this is normal? Completely normal. Hey, wait until you hear about allergies. That's when our immune system gets confused and starts fighting perfectly harmless things like pollen or peanuts. The scanner clattered to the floor. Dr. Zixtal's carapace had taken on a distinctly pale hue. Your immune system sometimes attacks you by mistake? Oh yeah. And sometimes it gets really confused and attacks our own bodies. We call those autoimmune disorders. I was enjoying this maybe a little too much, but after being treated like a fascinating specimen for the past hour, turnabout felt like fair play. Fascinating. And horrifying. The doctor managed, retrieving their scanner with slightly trembling appendages. Let us move on to basic physical resilience testing. What followed was a battery of tests that would have seemed bizarre even by human medical standards. They tested my reaction to various atmospheric compositions, my tolerance for temperature extremes, my ability to process different types of nutrients, and my resistance to various forms of radiation. With each test, Dr. Zixtal's professional demeanor cracked a little more. The breaking point came during the cellular regeneration analysis. This can't be correct, they chittered, running the test for the 3rd time. According to these readings, your body is constantly destroying and replacing cells at a rate that should be fatal. Oh, you mean apoptosis? Yeah, we replace most of our cells every 7 to 10 years. Pretty standard stuff. The doctor's antennae went completely rigid. Standard? Standard? Your entire body essentially dies and rebuilds itself multiple times during your lifespan, and you call this standard? I shrugged. Well, yeah. Though some cells, like neurons, stick around longer. And our gut bacteria. Gut bacteria? Dr. Zixtal interrupted, their voice rising to a pitch I hadn't thought possible for their species. Are you saying you have a colony of microorganisms living inside you? Oh boy, wait until you hear about mitochondria, I muttered under my breath, before saying more loudly. Yes, we have a complex microbiome that helps us digest food and maintain our health. They're our friends. The doctor was now pacing in rapid circles, all 6 legs clicking against the floor in an agitated rhythm. You harbor billions of foreign organisms inside your body, voluntarily, and refer to them as friends? To be fair, they do pull their weight. They help us digest food, produce vitamins, and even help train our immune system. I paused. You know, that constant internal warfare I mentioned earlier? Dr. Zixtal stopped pacing and turned all 4 eyes toward me. Human. What exactly is your species' classification on the galactic hardiness scale? I pretended to think about it. You know, I'm not sure. What's the rating for, can survive being frozen, can drink poison for fun, constantly at war with microscopic invaders, and regularly lets parts of their body die and regenerate? The doctor's appendages flew over their datapad with remarkable speed. A moment later, they stared at the results in silence for a full minute. According to these results, Dr. Zixtal's voice had taken on a sort of horrified awe. Humans are classified as As what? I prompted, trying not to grin. As a Class 12 Deathworld species. The doctor's voice was barely a whisper. The highest classification ever recorded. The scale wasn't even designed to go that high. We had to add a new category just for your species. Now it was my turn to be surprised. Wait, really? Class 12? That's kind of cool, actually. Cool? Dr. Zixtal's translator clearly struggled with the idiom. You find it pleasant to learn that your species is officially classified as one of the most resilient and terrifying forms of life in the known galaxy? Well, yeah. I mean, we've kind of had to be tough to survive on Earth. You should see some of the other stuff on our planet. We've got these bears that... No! Dr. Zixtal interrupted hastily. No, I do not wish to hear about your planet's other organisms. The medical data about your species alone will give me enough nightmares for several molt cycles. They began rapidly inputting data into their pad. I am approving your medical certification immediately. In fact, I'm recommending you for advanced hazardous environment clearance as well. Anyone who can survive being human is clearly qualified to handle any environmental challenges the galaxy might present. I hopped down from the examination platform, trying not to look too pleased with myself. Thanks, Doc. Hey, would you like to grab a drink? I know this great place that serves both ethanol-based and silicon-based beverages. The doctor's carapace rattled in what I was pretty sure was their version of a shudder. I think not. I believe I need to go update the Galactic Medical Database's entry on humans, and possibly seek therapy. As I headed for the door, I couldn't resist one parting shot. Oh, by the way, Doc, did you know we can repair damaged bones by literally growing new bone tissue? Our skeleton is basically alive and constantly remodeling itself. The sound of medical instruments clattering to the floor followed me out into the corridor. I grinned as I walked away. Sometimes being human in an interstellar community had its perks. Back in my quarters that evening, I filed my own report to the Human Integration Office back on Earth. I kept it brief. Medical certification obtained. Class 12 Deathworld status confirmed. Scared another alien doctor. Recommend adding Human Biology 101 to standard first contact protocols. Might save time in the long run. P.S. You owe me 50 credits, Johnson. Told you I could make one faint just by explaining our digestive system. P.P.S. Still haven't told them about our ability to synthesize vitamin D from solar radiation. Saving that for the xenobiologists conference next month. Should be fun. As I sent the report, I couldn't help but chuckle. Here we were, barely a decade into our membership in the Galactic Union, and we'd already forced them to rewrite their medical classification system. Not bad for a bunch of barely evolved primates, as the Arxidians had initially called us. I pulled up the station's entertainment feed and ordered a coffee, another substance that had caused quite a stir in xenobiology circles. As the bitter aroma filled my quarters, I started browsing through the latest scientific journals. There was a fascinating article about a newly discovered species that could survive in methane atmospheres. Amateurs, I thought with a smile, taking a sip of my scalding hot caffeine-laden, technically toxic beverage. Call me when you can eat ghost peppers for fun. The next morning, I received a priority message from the Human Integration Office. Apparently, my medical exam had caused quite a stir. The Galactic Union's Science Council was requesting a comprehensive study of human biological capabilities. They wanted to understand how we'd evolved such remarkable survival traits. I sent back a one-line response. Wait until they hear about how we used to persistence hunt our prey by literally chasing them until they collapsed from exhaustion. The reply came almost instantly. Do not tell them about persistence hunting. The Arxidian representative still hasn't recovered from learning about our circadian rhythm regulation. I laughed and headed to the station's gym. Time for my morning workout, another concept that had thoroughly confused our alien neighbors. The idea of voluntarily stressing our bodies to make them stronger had caused quite a few interesting discussions in xenobiology circles. As I started my routine, I could see a small group of alien observers trying to be subtle about watching me through the gym's transparent walls. Word about the Class 12 classification must have gotten around. I decided to give them a show and added some extra weights to my bar. After all, what good is being classified as a terrifying Deathworlder if you can't have a little fun with it? A week later, I found myself in an unexpected position, giving a presentation to the Galactic Union's Xenobiology Conference. Apparently, my medical exam had caused such a stir that they wanted a full briefing on human biological capabilities. The conference hall was packed with representatives from at least 30 different species, all eager to learn about the terrifying Deathworlders who had recently joined their community. Dr. Zixtal sat in the front row, looking simultaneously fascinated and horrified. They had somehow been roped into being the medical expert for the presentation, probably because they were one of the few alien doctors who had actually conducted a full examination of a human. And so, I continued, pulling up a new holographic display. That brings us to our skeletal structure. Not only are our bones constantly rebuilding themselves, but they can actually become stronger in response to stress. A ripple of murmuring went through the audience. A Floatian representative, their gas-filled body gently bobbing in their containment suit, raised an appendage. "Are you suggesting," they asked, their translated voice filled with disbelief, "that damaging your internal support structure makes it stronger?" "Exactly!" I beamed at them. "We call it Wolff's Law. The more stress we put on our bones, the denser and stronger they become. It's why our athletes and spacecraft crews have to do specific exercises to maintain bone density." The Floatian's color shifted to what I assumed was their species equivalent of pale. "You exercise your bones?" "Oh, sure," I said, warming to the topic. "We exercise pretty much everything. Muscles, bones, cardiovascular system." "The pumping organ?" interrupted a Maxelian scientist, their crystalline form vibrating in agitation. "You stress your fluid pumping organ? Deliberately?" "Well, yeah, makes it stronger. Speaking of which, did you know our hearts beat about 100,000 times a day? And we can significantly increase that rate through exercise and still function normally?" Dr. Zixtal's antennae went completely limp. "Please," they chittered weakly. "Please do not tell them about the adrenaline response." Too late. A quantum-linked hive mind representative had already picked up on the reference. "What is this adrenaline response?" I grinned. "Oh, that's when our bodies detect danger and basically overclock all our systems. Increased heart rate, enhanced strength, improved reaction time, reduced pain sensitivity." "Reduced pain sensitivity?" The hive mind's quantum field flickered and what I'd learned was confusion. "Your species can choose to ignore damage signals?" "Well, not exactly choose. It's more of an automatic response, although we can train ourselves to ignore pain to some extent. And speaking of training, wait until you hear about how we build muscle." "That's quite enough." Dr. Zixtal had finally found their voice. "I believe we should take a brief recess before continuing. Some of our colleagues appear to be distressed." They weren't wrong. Several audience members were showing their species equivalent of anxiety responses. The Floatian had turned a concerning shade of green, and the Maxelian's crystalline structure was vibrating at an alarming frequency. As the conference hall emptied for the break, I checked my communicator. "Another message from the Human Integration Office. Progress report on presentation received. Please stop traumatizing the xenobiologists. The Arcsidian Science Council is already demanding explanations for how we survived long enough to develop spaceflight." I typed back, "But I haven't even gotten to the cool stuff yet. Wait until they hear about how we can learn to echolocate with clicking sounds, or how some people can teach themselves to control their body temperature." The response was immediate. "No, absolutely not. Stick to basic biology. We already have 3 species filing formal inquiries about whether humans are actually some kind of biological weapons program." I sighed and started revising my presentation notes. I guess I'd have to save the really interesting stuff for another time. Although, maybe I could slip in just a quick mention of our ability to regenerate liver tissue. Dr. Zixtal appeared at my side, their carapace still showing signs of stress. "The conference board has requested that you moderate your presentation content. Apparently, the quantum-linked hive mind is having difficulty processing the concept of autonomous cellular regeneration." "Fine," I agreed. "I'll stick to the basics, but can I at least tell them about how we use beneficial bacteria to ferment food?" The doctor's antennae drooped. "You deliberately culture microorganisms? In your nutritional sources?" "Oh yeah. You should see what we do with milk proteins. We get these helpful bacteria to partially digest it for us, and—" "No!" Dr. Zixtal's translator squealed with alarm. "No more. I am still attempting to process the concept of your allergies. Please, for the sake of my remaining sanity, restrict your presentation to non-microscopic topics." I watched them scuttle away, their legs moving in the slightly uncoordinated way that indicated severe stress in their species. Maybe the Human Integration Office had a point. We should probably break them in slowly. Still, I couldn't resist pulling up my presentation notes and adding just one small section about human endurance running. After all, what was the worst that could happen? The answer came 3 hours later, when the Galactic Union officially classified human physical education classes as extreme risk activities and required warning labels on all documentation about human exercise routines. I considered this a win, After all, they hadn't even heard about parkour yet. The next morning, I woke up to find my communication terminal flooded with messages. Apparently, some brilliant soul had leaked footage of my presentation to the Galactic Information Network. The video had gone viral among alien social media circles, spawning thousands of discussion threads with titles like Humans, Evolution's Horror Story, and Are Deathworlders Actually Immortal? My favorite was Human Biology, a comprehensive list of things that should not be possible. The Human Integration Office was not amused. Congratulations. You've managed to convince half the galaxy that humans are immortal regenerating battle organisms. The Galactic Security Council is demanding a full investigation into whether Earth is actually a weapons testing facility. I typed back. To be fair, I didn't even mention our neuroplasticity or our ability to become stronger after recovering from injuries. Do not respond to any messages about human biology. We're getting flooded with inquiries. The Mexelians are convinced we're some kind of self-repairing war machines, and the Floatians have submitted a formal request to classify human sneezing as a biological weapon. I was still chuckling over that when my door chime sounded. To my surprise, Dr. Zixtal was waiting outside, along with a delegation of very official-looking aliens. Ah, good morning, the doctor's translator chirped with forced cheerfulness. The Galactic Science Council has questions. The tallest member of the delegation, a Varaxian with iridescent scales and far too many eyes, stepped forward. We have reviewed your presentation data, they announced. We find it troubling. Troubling how? I asked, already grinning internally. According to these records, your species can repair major tissue damage, fight off multiple infections simultaneously, generate new cells to replace damaged ones, modify your internal support structure in response to stress, temporarily ignore damage signals, and... The Varaxian scales rippled in what I assumed was distress. Voluntarily consume substances that would be lethal to most other species. That's correct. I nodded. Though you forgot about our ability to regulate our internal temperature through sweating. That usually freaks people out too. One of the other delegates, a floating cloud of ionized gas contained within a sophisticated environmental suit, pulsed rapidly. You mean your bodies leak fluid? To maintain homeostasis? Oh yeah, we can lose several liters of water through sweating and still function normally. Really helps with heat regulation during exercise. The ionized gas delegate's containment field flickered alarmingly. And this exercise you mentioned, you deliberately subject yourselves to physical stress to induce biological adaptation? Exactly. It's really efficient. Break down muscle tissue, and it grows back stronger. Challenge the cardiovascular system and it becomes more efficient. We can even... Please, Dr. Zixtal interrupted hastily. Perhaps we should focus on the Council's actual questions. The Varaxian scales had taken on a distinctly pale hue. Yes, our primary concern is the classification of your species. The Class 12 Deathworld designation seems... insufficient. Insufficient? I raised an eyebrow. I thought it was the highest classification. It was, the doctor explained. However, after reviewing your presentation, the Council believes we need to create an entirely new classification system. One that takes into account species that can... They consulted their datapad. Voluntarily trigger emergency survival responses for recreational purposes. I tried not to laugh. You mean like how we drink coffee to intentionally induce a mild fight-or-flight response? The ionized gas delegate's containment field crackled with static. You... what? Oh yeah. Lots of us can't even start our day without a nice dose of caffeine. It's a stimulant that... No! Dr. Zixtal's antennae were practically tied in knots. We are not discussing human recreational biochemistry right now. The Varaxian cleared their throat, or at least made a sound that the translator rendered as a throat clearing. We have prepared a list of questions about human biological capabilities. We would appreciate your candid responses. They handed me a datapad. I scrolled through the questions, trying not to grin too obviously. 1. Confirm or deny, humans can continue functioning with up to 30% blood loss. Sure. 2. Explain process of callus formation and its relationship to deliberate tissue damage. 3. Clarify statements about muscle memory and neural pattern adaptation. 4. Provide details about human dietary tolerance for toxic substances. 6. Explain concept of second wind during physical exertion. You know, I said, looking up from the pad, if you really want to understand human biology, you should probably talk to our athletes. They're the ones who really push the limits of what our bodies can do. The entire delegation took an involuntary step backward. There are humans who deliberately test the extremes of your biological capabilities? The Varaxians' scales were now cycling through various shades of distress. Oh, sure. We've got ultramarathon runners who go for days without sleep, free divers who can hold their breath for minutes at a time, strong men who lift incredible weights. I believe, Dr. Zixtal interrupted firmly, that we should address the Council's current questions before exploring additional topics. I shrugged. Fair enough. But just wait until you hear about how some humans can learn to control their autonomic nervous system responses. There's this thing called the Wim Hof method. The ionized gas delegate's containment field shut down in what appeared to be a fear response, forcing an emergency evacuation of the corridor. As alarms blared and emergency response teams rushed to contain the situation, I received one final message from the Human Integration Office. Stop talking about human biology. Conference center being evacuated. 3 species filing for restraining orders. Galactic Council considering reclassifying Earth as a restricted bioweapons research zone. P.S. But seriously, how did you manage to crash a quantum-linked hive mind with just a presentation about human cell division? I smiled and began composing my reply. Wait until they heard about how we could eat almost anything if we cooked it first. The following week found me standing before the Galactic Security Council itself. Apparently, causing multiple xenobiologists to have panic attacks and crashing a quantum-linked hive mind was enough to attract attention at the highest levels. The council chamber was an impressive sight, a vast hemispherical room with delegates from hundreds of species arranged in concentric rings. I stood in the center, feeling rather like a particularly interesting specimen under a microscope. Dr. Zixtal, now somehow promoted to senior expert on human biological hazards, stood beside me. Their carapace had developed a permanent nervous twitch. Human representative, the council leader, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline matrix, began. We have reviewed the incidents from the xenobiology conference, as well as your medical examination data. We have concerns. Look, I said, trying to sound reassuring, I really think everyone's overreacting a bit. Sure, we humans have some interesting biological features, but... Interesting? A sylphoid representative interrupted, their ethereal form rippling with agitation. Your species treats molecular poisons as recreational beverages, intentionally damages muscle tissue for enhancement purposes, and maintains a symbiotic relationship with billions of microorganisms. Well, when you put it that way, it does sound a bit weird, I admitted. But you haven't even heard about our really cool abilities yet, like how we can— No! Dr. Zixtal's translator nearly shorted out. No more biological revelations, please! The council leader's crystalline matrix pulsed with what I assumed was concern. We have received multiple petitions to reclassify Earth as a restricted bioweapons research facility. The Maxillian Confederation is convinced your entire species consists of self-repairing combat units. That's ridiculous, I protested. We're not combat units. Though we do have this neat thing called muscle memory where our bodies can— A dozen different emergency alerts went off simultaneously. The sylphoid representative had fainted, their ethereal form condensing into a small, worried cloud. Perhaps, Dr. Zixtal suggested desperately, we could focus on reassuring the Council that humans are not, in fact, a civilization-ending biological threat? Right, good idea, I agreed. Council members, I assure you that humans are perfectly peaceful. We only use our biological capabilities for survival and recreation. Like our ability to process toxic compounds through our liver, or how we can— The chamber erupted into chaos. 3 different species initiated emergency containment protocols, and someone triggered the biohazard alarm. As containment fields sprang up around the chamber, I received another message from the Human Integration Office. What did you do now? Half the Galactic Council just declared a Level 1 biological emergency. The Arcsidians are demanding we wear warning labels in public. I typed back, I was just trying to explain how our livers work. I didn't even get to the part about how we can digest almost anything with enough hot sauce. Stop talking about human biology. The quantum-linked hive mind is still trying to process the concept of cellular apoptosis, and the Floatians have officially classified human sneezing as an extinction-level event. A new alert popped up on my comm unit. The Galactic Council had just passed an emergency resolution. Resolution 47BX, Human Biological Classification. 1. All humans must now carry warning labels listing their biological capabilities. 2. Human medical data is officially classified as restricted information, requiring special clearance. 3. The term human exercise routine is now considered a Category 3 terror threat. 4. All documentation about human biology must include trauma counseling resources. 5. The entire field of human physiology is now a controlled subject requiring special permits to study. Dr. Zixtal reviewed the resolution with what seemed like relief. Perhaps now we can avoid further incidents. Sure, I agreed cheerfully. Though I should probably mention that humans can also develop new biological capabilities through training. Like how some people can learn to control their immune responses, or... The doctor's translator actually sparked. Please, just stop. Fine, I sighed. But you really should update the medical database about our ability to regulate body temperature through behavioral adaptations. And maybe add a note about our capacity for bioelectric generation through nervous system activity. Oh, and don't forget about the council chamber's emergency evacuation system activated, drowning out the rest of my sentence. As delegates rushed for the exits, I couldn't help but notice that my warning label now included the phrase, capable of inducing mass panic through casual conversation about basic biological functions. I considered this a personal achievement. Back in my quarters that evening, I started drafting a proposal for the Human Integration Office. Suggestion. Maybe we should warn them about human psychological capabilities before they discover our ability to form social bonds with literally anything. The response was immediate and emphatic. Do not mention human psychology. We're still dealing with the diplomatic fallout from your biology revelations. 3 species have requested restraining orders against the entire human race, and the quantum-linked hive mind is demanding hazard pay for any contact with humans. P.S. The Arcsidian Science Council wants to know if it's true that humans can learn to echolocate. Please do not answer this question. Ever.